The more people look back at the first 2 episodes of WandaVision and start analyzing all the little details and Easter eggs seem to point towards Mephisto finally appearing in the MCU. Now, if this does end up being true, then we could possibly be looking at some sort of comic book element that could transition to everything that's going to be affected with the multiverse. So there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the devil in Marvel Comics, because very early on, from way back in the day, when it was sort of illegal due to the comics code and everything to actually portray the devil or godlike characters, Marvel found a way to kind of play around with this by having a few characters that were positioned to be like the devil, Mephisto being one of the more prominent ones. And he would end up having a bunch of reoccurring roles throughout Marvel Comics, and of course was involved with one of the most infamous stories related to Spider-Man and his identity being revealed, and Spidey making a deal with the devil. Now, in the second episode of WandaVision, as many people have pointed out, when Dottie is talking about the roses that are there, she mentions that they look divine. Again, people are looking at this as a line that relates to the comics about the divine power of the devil, aka Mephisto. And also there is a moment in the series along with that where Dottie also mentions that the devil is in the details, and then Agnes follows up with, "That's not all he is." Now, Mephisto being somebody that's maybe manipulating Wanda would be something that's very comic-esque and could pull everything together and tie all these things to one another. And what if, in some sort of weird way, instead of doing the proper character of Nightmare for Doctor Strange 2, which we know Wanda is going to be a major part of, what if we get the revelation that Mephisto is also the character of Nightmare? And they can do that Marvel Studios thing where they pull an amalgamation, and maybe that's how the multiverse is tied in. Different versions of the devil from different parts of the multiverse could be converging upon one another, maybe even working together in some sort of weird, sinister way. Which then brings me to Spider-Man and to talk about all that, because we know, for example, in the comic, that once everything went to hell for Peter Parker, his identity was revealed, and all these other things like his marriage and everything, he again made a deal with the devil, and since then they've tried to retcon this and do different things with it. It always just becomes a mess. They just go, whatever, forget about that. But it is something that maybe Marvel Studios, like they've done with other things from the comics, might want to take on and streamline in a different way. And we don't know, for example, how long has Mephisto been pulling the strings from different corners of this realm that he's in? What if we figure out that Mephisto was pulling the strings, for example, for Mysterio to make this thing a possibility? Again, we don't know how far they're going to go into this, but clearly Spider-Man 3 being something that picks up the pieces from WandaVision, as Kevin Feige said, makes me believe that maybe there's a little bit more to this and this whole Mephisto mystery that they're going to reveal throughout the first season than meets the eye. And maybe they could go further and also do some sort of amalgamation where maybe, because we see that the Grim Reaper is represented, maybe the Reaper and Mephisto could be the same thing. We just don't know. We don't know how they're going to portray the devil because, again, many different religions on the planet all perceive this evil entity with a different name and a different style of history and a backstory, just like the comics. So maybe it all sort of ties into one, and we get this giant reveal of, yeah, it's all kind of all connected through a weird multiverse way.